How's it going, everybody? It's Riley's Redzone here, back with another football video, and in today's video I'm looking at the 2021 season and predicting who will win the Super Bowl and who will make the playoffs and maybe how far all those teams will get. So if you're familiar with my channel, over the past few months I've been ranking the NFL teams, and I still have some teams to rank, so a majority of them that are left that I have not made videos on are in this video as playoff teams. So I will not be giving out, the rankings yet. I'm still going to be making more of those, but I will be in today's video predicting who makes the playoffs. I'm also going to give out the seeding. I'm not going to give out specific records in this video. If you're interested in those, you can click on this playlist here in the top right, and you can see all the teams. There's maybe in this episode, if you've been watching the rankings, I think the Washington football team is the only team so far that I've been revealed that has made the playoffs. So you can see the specific record predictions there. But of all the teams I've done so far, you can see them all there. But I'm not going to give out the rest of the record predictions quite yet, just because I am saving those for those teams' episodes. But in today's video, I will be giving out the seeds, building a bracket for the playoffs, and predicting who hypothetically would win these games. And I'm going to give a prediction for who I think wins the Super Bowl this season. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to show you my predictions for who makes the playoffs. Let's talk about who I am making the playoffs before getting into any game predictions, but I will cover what the games would be here. Let's first start by just talking about the seeding. Let's start with the AFC. I've got my division winners as the Chiefs in the AFC West there. I think that they bring everybody back on their key contributors on offense, with Mahomes and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I feel like will be a big improvement this season. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. You still have all those studs. Now, I also think they've improved the tackle situation from the Super Bowl. Overall, they took a big hit losing Fisher and Schwartz, but they really replaced it well with Orlando Brown. So they do have a replenished offensive line, and I think this team will be incredible once again this year. Their defense is still also solid. I think Chris Jones will be used in a very good role this year. So I think the Chiefs still are absolutely on fire, and they have perhaps the best roster in the AFC, but at a very close second is Buffalo, who, if Josh Allen can even step up even more from what he did last year, this team might be set for a Super Bowl run. They are incredible on offense with the talent they have there with Allen and Diggs at wide receiver. They also still bring in Emmanuel Sanders. We might see an improvement from Gabriel Davis. Questions in the running game, but the passing game is a sure thing there in Buffalo, and they do get some improvements on the defensive side of the ball. So I think that they will be back again like last year in contention to potentially win the AFC. At third, winning the AFC North record-wise, I have the Baltimore Ravens. That's going to be a tough division. I've, in my rankings, who I haven't revealed, so I can say I have three teams within the top 15 there for the AFC North. I think it's going to come down to the Browns and the Ravens. It's incredibly close. The J.K. Dobbins injury was a huge hit for sure, but I have absolute confidence in Gus Edwards that he will pick up the torch and continue going. Lamar is so good on the option and can run the ball as well. They just paid Mark Andrews, and although they have the concerns at wide receiver, Marquise Brown is really who they need to step up, and Bateman's dealing with some injuries right now. They bring in Sammy Watkins. I think Mark Andrews will be the key to that offense. So I do think that their offense is still unbelievable, and their defense is still one of the best in the league every year just because of the culture and just the system there. They've always been able to succeed. So I have them winning the AFC North. The Titans is who I have winning the AFC South. That is probably the worst team in the division winning section, as I think the AFC South is the worst division. So it's not as bad as like the NFC East. but I think that the AFC South is the worst division in the AFC. So the Titans end up with a 4 seed, even though they are quite lower than anybody else who made the playoffs here on the AFC side for me. But, Tannehill is still there. They still have Derrick Henry. They bring in Julio Jones. Him and A.J. Brown on offense. Definitely an explosive offense. The defense is where I have huge concerns, personally. I wasn't a huge fan of Caleb Farley. They ended up getting him at a decent value, but I think the corner position is a huge concern. Him and Janoris Jenkins, to me, is not going to get it done. So I do have some concerns on the defensive side of the ball for Tennessee, but I think they do win this division. At number 5 for the seeding is the New England Patriots for me. They just decided recently to go with Mac Jones for sure over Cam Newton. That was an interesting decision, but I feel pretty confident in Mac Jones going into this season, actually. And I think he will have a successful year with the Patriots, but specifically they are getting so many guys back from the opt-outs last year that it's almost a whole new team. You can't really compare it to what last year's was. So I think New England has a huge bounce-back season. The Chargers, I have at 6 just because of Justin Herbert. I think takes another step up in year 2. I think he will have another successful year. Having him, Eckler, and Keenan Allen on offense is deadly, and it has an underrated defense there in Los Angeles as well. I think they pick it up again, and really just that improvement from Herbert is enough for me to see a playoff push here from them. And then the Browns, I have, as I mentioned with the Ravens, they're pretty close, but the Browns have an explosive offense with Mayfield, Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, a lot of great names there on offense. Their defense is also very, very solid. Having Myles Garrett as one of the best players in the league is certainly a positive for your team. And they also bring in Jadeveon Clowney this offseason, have some great corner there in Denzel Ward. They really have a lot of great players all around in Cleveland. So the AFC has a lot of great talent there going into the playoffs. Going to the NFC side, I would say the NFC is overall stronger, perhaps, except for the NFC East winner, which I have the Washington football team on. But let's first talk about the Bucs. It's interesting. I see two perspectives here for the Bucs. In one hand, they bring literally everybody back from a team that just won the Super Bowl, and they even improve, like with Giovanni Bernard over like LaShawn McCoy for a depth running back who can actually catch the ball, and Joe Tryon they bring in from Washington in the draft. Like they figuratively on paper only can improve because they literally didn't lose anybody. At the same time, they do get Vita Vea back. It's probably their only injury that's really notable. But then what to me is concerning then is injuries could happen. And, they went pretty healthy last year besides Vita Vea, I would say. And so we've seen it happen before. I mean, we look at Kansas City last year, right? They win a Super Bowl. They bring a lot of guys back and more injuries happen. And it's just not the same thing that happens. We saw that with San Francisco after they won a Super Bowl. It's just they went to the Super Bowl. I mean, it happens where when you have a team that goes that far, that kind of means everything went right. So although I have the Bucs at number 1 on paper, I think they're going to roll through the regular season. If an injury happens, that's going to really lower them because they didn't really deal with too much last year. I have the Los Angeles Rams as the 2 seed in the NFC. I think that Matthew Stafford will prove to be perhaps one of the best pickups this entire offseason, if not the best. I think that it was a huge move, and I actually believe it will pay off. I think Matthew Stafford is a great quarterback who has not been given full opportunities in Detroit, and so put him in a high-flying offense here in LA with unfortunately, they had the Cam Akers injury, but still, Darrell Henderson, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, and Sean McVay leading that offense, and having Aaron Donald on defense, Jalen Ramsey. I mean, this is a very, very good team, and I think that they'll be closer to what they were a few years ago. I personally see Stafford as a huge improvement over Jared Goff, so I think that is enough to really take them over the top in the NFC, and why I have them as a 2 seed. The Packers, I think, are also very, very solid. They bring guys back, at a few spots. Really, it was only Kevin King. But then they bring Randall Cobb back as well this offseason. They did lose, though, like Corey Linsley. I think that is huge. So they bring, some guys from the past, but then they still have some losses that they lose. So I think that this is a similar team to what it was last year. And as I kind of talked about the Bucs, I think about some of the teams over the past few years. This team couldn't get over the hump to go to the Super Bowl this year. They didn't really do anything besides get Randall Cobb back to improve the roster. And as as I mentioned with the Bucs, if you have a good season, it can really only go down when it comes to injuries and other potential wild cards that could happen. So I don't love them not really doing much because it could figuratively only go down for them, like health-wise. I have Washington winning the NFC East. It is a terrible division. They're the only team that I have actually already covered in the videos. So you can see my full breakdown of them, in the playlist I put up there earlier. But they are improved. I like them a lot for sure in that division. I think they're the best team by far. Fitzpatrick is an upgrade at QB, I would say, overall. I liked Alex Smith last year. I was recommending them to start him, but I do think Fitzpatrick is an improvement. Antonio Gibson, absolutely unbelievable at running back, and Terry McLaurin's still there. And then Chase Young, maybe another year of improvement on defense. So I think that they will be a potentially dangerous team. We saw them contend with Tampa Bay last year with Taylor Heineke at quarterback. So they could potentially be a team to watch out for, but at the moment I would kind of say they're the weak link in the NFC. And then the wild cards in the NFC. I have the Arizona Cardinals getting the 5 seed. I think that this team made some massive moves this offseason that will really, and I kind of believed in them last year, and they didn't end up doing it. I thought Kyler was he did perform very, very well, but I think this year's the year again. I'm going to believe in them that he takes a huge step up. Some questions at running back, perhaps, you have Hopkins, and then they bring in A.J. Green, but then the defense, now that Chandler Jones is for sure going to, I thought at some point he was maybe going to be traded because he requested it, but to have him and J.J. Watt, to me, is huge. They did, unfortunately, have a recent hit with Malcolm Butler retiring after Patrick Peterson already left. So that's a huge question mark for me at corner. But besides that, having some great players like Budda Baker, their linebacking room is stacked. They have a lot of great players, and I think this is the year they truly improve and really take a step up with Cliff Kingsbury. If they don't, though, he could potentially be on the hot seat. I'm going with the Saints as well, making the playoffs here with the 6th seed. Now that they're going to go with Jameis at quarterback, I think that was a smart move, high upside. That was really the conversation all offseason. And I also feel more confident that he's kind of found a target in Marquez Callaway because Michael Thomas is going to be out for the first little bit. And I didn't really think they had much else besides him. They still have, besides Alvin Kamara, but at receiver. So to see Jameis get a connection with Marquez Callaway, I like that a lot. And then they still have some great players like Cam Jordan and Marshawn Lattimore on defense. So I think the Saints still will do well, even though they lose Brees to retirement. And then that last spot for me really comes down to somebody. I have 3 NFC West teams. I doubt we could see 4, even though maybe you'll see eventually. This may be a little bit revealing, but I have, for example, all 4 NFC West teams are still out there. I've not revealed them in my power ranking series. So they're actually above one of the teams that I, haven't covered yet, and you might know then who that is. Their worst team in that division above a team making the playoffs here on the NFC. That's not somebody I've already revealed. So I do think that division is so tough. I just don't think they can get 4 in. So to me, it basically then comes down to the Niners and the Seahawks. So that's really, really close. It ended up just being kind of schedule-wise, being the 49ers here. I do think that by the end of the season, they will go with Trey Lance. They're going to start with Garoppolo, I believe. And I would not be shocked if they find ways to get Lance in there. But I think after the bye week or something, they switch to Lance and go with him for a while and, really just don't look back because he has a high upside. I was not a huge fan of him this offseason compared to like Justin Fields or Zach Wilson or Trevor Lawrence, but I thought he was absolutely solid. So I think that they go with him by the end of the season. I'm just seeing maybe some health improvements. The defense, I think, is absolutely solid. So I think San Francisco bounces back and makes the playoffs this year. So now I'm going to start talking about specific games, that we have matched up here and really predicting who can make a run at the Super Bowl. Starting with that top game for the AFC, Bills versus Browns, I am going with the Bills there. They're the higher seed. I think that Josh Allen is a huge difference maker this year, and he already improved a lot, but I think he just continues to level up his play, and is going to be potentially an MVP candidate. I think, he was really close last year, but I think he might just win it this year. So I think that is huge for them, and I think their defense has also improved. The Browns are a solid team. If they were playing almost anybody else in this entire bracket on the left, I think that I would have the Browns as a ranking of who could potentially go the farthest in the playoffs. I would probably put the Browns pretty high, maybe third, but I think at least on paper with their high upside and everything behind like the Chiefs and the Bills, but I think the Bills beat the Browns in probably a close one in this situation. So I just feel confident in Josh Allen, and that's why I have the Bills beating the Browns there. Then Ravens-Chargers. We might not get a Ravens-Titans rematch as we always like. This was a very difficult game for me to choose. We look at kind of opposite offenses here. The ground run the ball heavy offense of the Ravens with kind of a tough defense versus the high flying pass offense of the Chargers with kind of more of a skilled defense. I personally, when it comes to playoffs, lean towards a team like Baltimore here. I think they have the experience. Lamar is an absolutely solid quarterback, but I do think, the Ravens are around the same level they've been for the past few years where it's like, I believe in them to get a wild card win. It's just maybe how far can we get after that? We'll see if this year's the year they can take a step up. But I feel confident in that offense. So I think that it would come down to that. I think this was very, very close though. But I think Herbert might need another year just to, develop after this and really take that team far. They're in a tougher division, with Kansas City being perhaps the best team in the AFC. So I'm going to go with the Ravens here. So they would match up against the Bills in round 2. Perhaps my favorite hypothetical matchup in this bracket on the left would be the Titans and the Patriots. We saw this game a few years ago. Now Brady's gone. That ended up being Brady's last pass as a Patriot as a pick 6 for the Titans. So I think that this will be a very interesting game. And it honestly comes down to the defense and the quarterback position. Now, I would kind of give the edge on offense to the Titans. They have Tannehill. He has playoff experience now more than he used to. Since joining the Titans, they bring in Julio. They still have Derrick Henry. So I like that a lot. But as I mentioned earlier, I think their defense has a lot more questions. The Patriots only got better this offseason. And I think that, honestly, Mac Jones as a rookie will be an improvement of what Cam Newton was last year. So, and to get guys like Dante Hightower back, I think that will be huge for them, and their defense improves because of that. So I'm taking the better defense, kind of the better coaching, perhaps. I mean, it's really close on that one, because Vrabel has proven to be a very, very good coach in the playoffs. But I am going with the New England Patriots here. This is very, very close. But I think that the upside now with Mac Jones being a nice quarterback there and an improved defense gives New England the edge here in a playoff setting. NFC side, starting with the division game, Rams and Niners. I'm going with the Los Angeles Rams. I think that offense will be too much. Matthew Stafford is an improvement in the defense. Having a guy like Aaron Donald and then having Jalen Ramsey too on the outside is huge. I think that if it comes down here, I value experience and playoff experience a lot in the playoffs. But when you get two teams with potentially new quarterbacks by the end of the season on their team, as I do think the Niners will eventually go with Lance, and even if they're going with Garoppolo, I think that the upside of the Rams in this situation is too high. And if you're getting two teams with a new quarterback, I think Stafford has more experience and honestly a higher upside this year with this offense surrounding him. So I would go with the Rams here to make the divisional round. Packers, Saints. I think the Saints are the worst wild card team I had on this list with, potentially Jameis. I mean, I think it was a smart choice to start him with what you have, but I do think in this situation, you get an experienced team like Green Bay with, championship experience as well. We've seen them make so many NFC championships as, besides the Super Bowl championship, but that's almost a decade ago, but you still have your quarterback from that run. I think Aaron Rodgers is on a revenge tour this year. He's going to just ride it out with the Packers one last time and really see where this thing can go. So I think that experience at the quarterback position is really what it comes down to here. I think Green Bay also probably has the better defense out of these two, even though it's relatively close there. I think it's just the offense that, maybe Michael Thomas's health could be a real game changer here, because at the moment, I think with the quarterback experience and the other weapons on offense, I would go with the Packers here to beat the Saints. And then Washington, Arizona, as I mentioned, I think this is the year Arizona finally steps up. But, an inexperienced team when it comes to the playoffs there, especially a quarterback. But I think it's way too overpowering. Washington does have a solid defense, but Kyler and Hopkins, I think, are going to tear up the league this year. And it really also comes down then to, it's just like the Saints with Jameis. I like them going with Ryan Fitzpatrick here at quarterback in Washington, but I don't think it's enough to really take them over the top and do a whole ton better than what they've had there before. I do think it's an improvement, but when we're getting into these top teams, really Washington sticks out like a sore thumb to me as the worst team on this entire bracket. So I think that the Cardinals do take a step up here, even though they have inexperience in the playoffs. I think they can beat a team like Washington. So now jumping back to the AFC, who's going to make the conference championship? I have the Chiefs beating the Patriots in the divisional round. I think that the Chiefs are just loaded. They improved even almost, I would say, potentially on both sides of the ball. I think that really they just are too much for this Patriots team. I have the Patriots, as an improved team a lot. I do think, though, it comes down to I like Mac Jones. Their defense is improved, but you put Patrick Mahomes out there, he's not going to make Mac Jones look like anything special. So I think, honestly, in this situation, it would come down to that experience at the quarterback position. So I'm going with Mahomes. In this situation, I think just their roster overall is too good to not beat a team like that. So I have the Chiefs moving on to the AFC Championship. Then the Bills versus the Ravens. I have the Bills getting the win. I just have a good feeling about the Bills this year again. And the Ravens, to me, have shown that they can win like in the first round. With a run-heavy offense and a solid defense, that's a style that not every team is able to defend very well. But I think that just Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs is too good of a connection, similar reasons to KC, on why they move on. I feel something this year from Josh Allen that he's going to step up and perhaps be the MVP of the league. So I just feel too confident in that to even think they won't make it as far as the AFC Championship. And honestly, I don't think we've seen anything special out of Lamar and John Harbaugh in the playoffs in recent years. So nothing proves to me that Baltimore could really go out and beat a team like Buffalo, especially in a tough playoff setting like this. So I have a rematch of last year's AFC Championship here with the Chiefs and the Bills. NFC side, I think this is the easier one. We've got the Bucks, we've got the Cardinals. I think that it comes down once again to playoff inexperience and experience. I did already talk about, the Bucks could easily regress. But I do think that when it comes to the playoffs, Brady can get it done. They've still got Evans and Godwin, and that defense is insane, especially if you get Vita Vea back. And as I mentioned, injuries could hit this team, but even so, even if you had some injuries for Tampa Bay, I think they're just too experienced and too good of a roster on paper to not beat a team like Arizona. I do think Arizona has really stepped up, and they're back up there for me as, a top team, but I think they just need a bit more time. But I think this year is the year that Kyler finally proves something, that he's one of the best QBs in the league. So I have Tampa Bay winning it here and making it back to the NFC Championship. And it looks like I'm going to have a repeat of the championship games in both conferences. Not exactly how it was designed to play out. This game between Los Angeles and Green Bay is so interesting. I think that it really comes down to the wire here. On paper, I think the Rams are a better team. I think they have more difference makers on defense. And if you go by all players, they probably have a better offense. Having two really solid receivers versus just the one, is a difference. But it comes down to you've got Aaron Rodgers for the Packers, and I think that is too much for the Rams to handle, even with a star-studded defense. I think that it comes down to that, and Aaron Rodgers, I think, is on a revenge tour, and he's going one more time. I wouldn't be shocked if they go all the way and win the Super Bowl with that. So I think he has a lot of motivation, and it comes down to that as to why I have the Packers in my bracket, technically upsetting the Rams. I really like the move, though, getting Stafford, and I think the Rams will be great this year. But I think that Rodgers has too much to prove, and the Packers just have enough playoff experience to get a win there. And now for the championship games, and I know it isn't Super Bowl, but it may surprise you. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills over the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I may be getting fancy with this. I did this last year in my playoff predictions video, and it didn't work out. But I still get that feeling, and I feel even more confident this year. I think Buffalo is on a mission. I think Josh Allen is going to have an MVP season. I think, if looking at any players on this bracket, like looking at quarterbacks, for example, I would, if I picked awards, I pick awards for every single team, if you watch my series on ranking all the teams, so I didn't do overall award winners here, but if I had to pick an MVP, I think my favorite would be Josh Allen. I think he is going to be unbelievable this year. I think Diggs has extra motivation. We saw it at the end of last year's AFC Championship game, him waiting on the sideline. I think they have something to prove, and they are not going to back down from going to a Super Bowl. They haven't made it since the 90s. I think that although the Chiefs on paper are the better team and better roster, debatably better quarterback, debatably better coaching, it's just a feeling on this one. And compared to the playoffs, I feel like a year in advance, a whole season in advance, I feel like with these predictions, I can have a little bit more feeling towards it. And I believe Buffalo will have an outstanding season. And barring that they're healthy, I think that if they are healthy, I think they make a huge run at this and at least make the AFC Championship. But I have them going to the Super Bowl in this prediction. And on the NFC side, I think it came down to both championships games being the hardest games for me to predict out of this whole bracket. The NFC, I think I just don't get as much of a strong feeling. This is also kind of a feeling versus paper situation. The Bucks on paper have probably the best roster in the NFL, considering if you count them as a champion, and you take the champion and you only improve them because they did not lose literally anybody, you think, how could that go wrong? Well, I can think of injuries, and honestly, that's where I think it could start to go wrong. But then it's history versus feeling. I am so confident in this Packers team, and feeling-wise, I had him maybe going to the NFC Championship. I get a great feeling from Aaron Rodgers this year that he's going to be on a revenge tour and light up the league and just prove again why he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And, I think Green Bay will be very disappointed and very unfortunate that they might not have him after this season. So I get the feeling that he's going to succeed, but on paper, I don't know how you beat the Bucs considering how good that team is. And then I thought the Packers were going to do it last year. I think just we've seen it too many years, maybe this going too much off of history, but just they've lost in the NFC Championship so many times. And it comes down to, if you don't try to get better, you're never going to get better than what you already were. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, we take a look at this team, they make it to the NFC Championship. If you don't try to get better, you're never going to be able to repeat. The same will never equal better. They really only added like Randall Cobb. And I like that move a lot, but that is not enough to kick you to the Super Bowl in beating the defending champion who you lost by a lot to in the NFC Championship game last year. That is not enough. I mean, I still always think back of teams that have kind of, for example, people can criticize the Kirk Cousins signing for Minnesota a number of years ago, but they were like 13-3 with Case Keenum at quarterback. Everything went right for them that season. And so you know that if you don't make any changes, you're not going to get that good again. And that's what I feel about the Bucs and the Packers in this situation. And the Bucs more so not because of what they've done. It was smart for them to bring everybody back, and I think that they've only gotten better. But more so what could happen there is injuries. That's less of this situation, but there could be some regression there in the playoffs. But the Packers, I just don't think did enough to prove to me why they would be able to beat the Bucs. Even though I get a great feeling from Aaron Rodgers, I think he puts up a phenomenal performance. But it really comes down to coaching not being enough and the rest of the team not being enough for them to really get over the hump and make the Super Bowl again. So my Super Bowl then comes down to the Bills versus the Bucs. And in a bit of potentially a shocker, I guess there's some people in this situation, I have the Buffalo Bills beating the Bucs. And it's mostly feeling here. I just have a feeling that Buffalo really has something to prove this year. I love Josh Allen this season as an improved player, and I think just Diggs is great there. Their defense is solid, and it comes down to, once again, on paper, the Bucs have the best roster in the NFL. I am never going to doubt Tom Brady in any situation ever when it comes to the playoffs. And so what this comes down to for me is what I've talked about many times in this video. As good as Tampa Bay is, and even if some injuries were to occur, I think they'd still be better than anybody in the NFC. I feel that the top two in the AFC might be better than anybody else in the NFC, besides maybe the Bucs here. So what I'm saying is, I feel great about the Bucs team. But there is no way that I just find it likely they, if anything, could end up with more injuries. And or potentially just maybe a bit of regression there just from, they really only had Vita Vea they get him back. But, I think things could go incredibly wrong for Tampa Bay if an injury happens. Once again, I believe in Tom Brady as much as anybody to get it done in any situation, but it's more so just a feeling here. I think Buffalo improved, whether it's getting Emmanuel Sanders, drafting Gregory Rousseau, who I thought was a phenomenal draft choice. They have done some things here to actually improve their team this offseason, unlike what teams like in the NFC, like the Packers, really did. And then I think that I just get a great feeling here, and I think Josh Allen wins your MVP pretty much, and probably Super Bowl MVP. And I think a Super Bowl for the first time goes to Buffalo. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.